The Galactic Empire spanned millions of star systems, a vast, cold monarchy that had crushed countless rebellions across the galaxy. At the heart of its terrifying power was an army of engineered alien predators, beasts so savage and deadly that even the most advanced civilizations quailed in fear. These creatures were perfect weapons, intelligent, terrifying, and utterly relentless. They hunted any dissenters with cold, methodical precision. And now they had turned their eyes toward Earth. From a distance, Earth was an anomaly, a planet marked by its quaint, primitive lifeforms and lack of advanced technology. But the Empire underestimated the planet's resilience. Despite its seemingly backward status, Earth was a raw, untamed force. And though its governments were disjointed and often ineffective, humanity had one thing the Empire had never accounted for: an unyielding will to survive. The predators arrived without warning. A nightmarish species, with sleek, muscular bodies and hyper-intelligent eyes, they descended upon Earth's cities like an unstoppable storm. They didn't just kill, they terrorized. Entire populations were wiped out in brutal ambushes. Their weapons, far more advanced than anything Earth's military could muster, allowed them to systematically dismantle every defense the planet could offer. Global leaders scrambled, but their armies were fractured and uncoordinated, unable to respond to the sophisticated threats unleashed upon them. In the aftermath of the initial onslaught, scattered resistance groups formed. Civilians who had lost everything, families, homes, friends, banded together in makeshift militias. They retreated into the wild, adapting quickly to their new harsh reality. Guerrilla tactics became their only defense as they sought to sabotage the invaders. But no matter how resourceful they became, the predators' relentless hunting methods seemed unbeatable. And then, like a ghost from Earth's bloody past, a figure appeared: John Rambo. Rambo had long ago left the front lines of any war, retreating into the quiet solitude of the deep forests where he found peace amidst the trees. He was a man marked by violence, his soul scarred by the horrors of past conflicts. The wars he fought in Vietnam, Afghanistan, countless covert operations, had left him a weary, broken man. He had learned to survive, to fight when necessary, but his spirit had been crushed long before the Empire arrived. The first time Rambo heard of the Predator attacks, he didn't care. He had learned the hard way that human conflict was endless, that no matter how much blood was spilled, the world would never change. But then it happened. A small group of survivors, men and women mostly untrained, stumbled across his cabin, their faces grim with the weight of loss. They had heard rumors of a man who had fought in wars, a soldier who could survive anything. They begged him for help. At first, Rambo wanted nothing to do with them. He had no interest in saving a world that had already abandoned him. But then, as they spoke, the true weight of the alien invasion began to settle in. They spoke of their families, lost without a trace, victims of the predator's ruthless hunting. They spoke of villages burned to the ground, of homes reduced to rubble. And there, in their voices, Rambo heard something he hadn't heard in years: a cry for justice, a plea for vengeance. It stirred something deep within him. One of the survivors, a young woman named Sarah, had a personal reason for seeking Rambo's help. She had lost her younger brother in the first wave of attacks. She had watched him die, helpless, as one of the predators tore him apart in front of her. Her words were simple, but they cut through Rambo's calloused heart. "I need you to kill them. All of them." Rambo didn't say a word. He simply walked to his old weapons locker, the one he'd sealed years ago, and began to prepare. His calloused fingers ran over the worn rifle, the machete, the gear he had once used to survive in the worst conditions imaginable. He didn't need to be asked twice. The old soldier was coming back. His first step was to track the predators. He knew their kind: brutal, efficient, and methodical, but he also knew their arrogance. They believed they were untouchable, that their technology made them invincible. What they didn't understand was that Earth's untamed wilderness was the perfect battlefield for someone like Rambo. Using the forest as his cover, Rambo began to set traps. He understood the way the predators thought. They hunted by instinct, driven by the thrill of the kill. But Rambo wasn't going to fight them on their terms. He was going to force them to play by his rules. The survivors, watching from the outskirts, couldn't believe their eyes. Rambo moved like a shadow through the forest, slipping past enemy lines, setting traps, and using the predators' own tactics against them. He didn't just fight, he made the predators afraid. Every time one of their number disappeared, every time an ambush struck them unexpectedly, they began to question their certainty. And in that doubt, Rambo saw an opening. As the days passed, the survivors rallied behind him. The initial fear was replaced by hope, hope that someone could fight back, that Earth's tenacity was enough to drive back the invaders. But Rambo knew that this was only the beginning. The predators would not stop, and the Galactic Empire would soon send reinforcements. There was no turning back now. But Rambo didn't care. He wasn't fighting for the world, he was fighting for the people who still believed in it. And if that meant taking on an entire empire, he would do it one kill at a time. The Empire's invasion was far from over. But on Earth, one man had just made them realize that they weren't as invincible as they though. The Galactic Empire spanned millions of star systems, surgical and relentless. Cold monarchy that had crushed countless rebellions learning from every ambush and failed sweep. At the heart of its terrifying power was an army of technology and superior physicality. Beasts they were so savage and deadly that even the most advanced civilizations Rambo wasn't just another human. These creatures were the embodiment of survival, intelligent, of terrifying, and utterly relentless. And unlike the predators, he had nothing to lose. Cold, methodical, in the dense heart of the forest, and now Rambo turned their eyes toward Earth. From a distance, Earth was an anomaly, his presence undetectable by even to the primitive life forms and lack of advanced technology. The forest was his ally, but the Empire underestimated the planet's resilience. Endless shadows providing both cover and weapon status. Every step he took was deliberate, every decision calculated. And though its governments were disjointed, he wasn't just surviving, he was waging war. One thing the Empire had never accounted for. An unyielding squad of predators had ventured into the forest. Arrived with their glowing eyes scanning the underbrush for movement. With sleek, muscular bodies and hyper-intelligent eyes, their sharp claws gleaming in the pale light. An unstoppable storm. They were hunters bred for perfection. They didn't just kill, they confident in their invulnerability. Entire populations were wiped out, shattered the moment the first trap sprung. Their weapons, far more advanced than of reinforced military could muster, coated with spikes, allowed them to systematically dismantle every defense the planet could offer. Ensnaring one predator. Global leaders scrambled, its guttural roar but their armies were fractured and uncoordinated. But the sound was cut short, unable to respond to the sophisticated sharpened log swung down from the canopy. In the aftermath of the initial onslaught, pinning it to the scattered resistance groups. The others turned, their weapons raised, but it was too late. Families, Rambo struck from the shadows, banded together and makeshift militias. Alien armor, they retreated into the wild, adapting quickly to their new harsh realities. Guerrilla tactics once became their only defense as they sought to sabotage the invaders. Not against Rambo, matter how resourceful they became, as news of the squad's relentless hunting methods seemed unbeatable. Began to recalibrate. And then, like a ghost their movements grew more cautious, their hunts more deliberate. John Rambo. But this only played into Rambo's hands. Left the front lines. He was a master of psychological warfare, into the quiet solitude of the deep forest where he found peace amidst the trees. They bleed. Rambo he was a man marked by violence, crouched over the remains of a fallen predator. Past conflicts. That means they can die. The wars he fought, the survivors who followed him were astounded by his covert operations. To them, Rambo was more than human. Broken man. He was a force of nature. He had learned to survive, unstoppable juggernaut of defiance. But his spirit had been crushed long before the Empire arrived. The first time Rambo heard of the predator attacks, he didn't care. How do you keep doing it? The hard way that one evening as they rested in a makeshift camp, that no matter how much blood was spilled, the world would never change. Rambo's expression didn't change. A small group of survivors, flickering men and women, mostly untrained, fear stumbled across his cabin. It's what you do after you grim with the weight of loss. He turned to Sarah. They had heard rumors of a man who had fought in wars. They think they're hunters, a soldier who could survive, but they don't know what it means to fight for survival. At first, like Rambo wanted nothing to do with galvanized the survivors. He had no interest in saving a world that had already abandoned him. Taking inspiration from Rambo's actions, the true weight of the alien invasion began to settle in and prepared for a day when they too could join the fight. Lost without a trace, once a flickering ember was now a roaring fire. The predators' villages burned to the ground. In response to Rambo's strikes, and they deployed an elite commander. Rambo heard an enormous predator clad in black, reinforced for justice, a plea for intelligence surpassed that of its kin, something deep and its reputation as one of the survivors was a young woman named Sarah, had a personal reason for seeking Rambo's help. The commander wasted no time. She had lost her younger brother in the patterns of Rambo's attacks. She had watched him die, helpless, using one of the predators tore him apart in front of her. Rambo into an ambush deep within the forest. They cut through Rambo's calloused heart. As Rambo approached the seemingly vulnerable group, the commander and its forces surrounded him, cutting off every avenue to his old weapons locker. For the first time since the conflict began to prepare. Rambo found himself his calloused fingers ran over the worn rifle, their weapons humming with deadly energy. He had once used to survive in the worst conditions imaginable. He had seen worse odds before. He didn't need to be asked twice. You're not the first to think you've got me beat, he growled, his first step was to track the predators. And you won't be the last. Brutal, in the chaos that followed, methodical, Rambo proved but he also knew their greatest weapon. They believed they were every tool at his disposal, that their technology made them invincible. Improvised traps, what they didn't understand was that Earth's untamed wilderness was the perfect battlefield for someone like Rambo. Despite their overwhelming numbers and advanced tactics, Rambo began to set traps. The predators found themselves unable to pin him down. The predators thought. In the midst of the battle, Rambo came face to face with the commander. The Predator's
Rambo
glowing
wasn't going
eyes
to
locked
fight them
onto
on their
his,
terms,
and for a moment
he was going to
they
force
stood
them to
motionless,
play by his
two
rules.
warriors
The
sizing
survivors
each other up.
watching from
The
the
commander
outskirts
was
couldn't
fast,
believe their
strong,
eyes.
and intelligent, but
Rambo
Rambo
moved
was like
patient.
a shadow through the
When the
forest,
Predator lunged,
slipping past
Rambo
enemy
sidestepped,
lines, setting
striking
traps,
with precision.
and using the
The
Predator's
battle
own
was
tactics
brutal,
against them.
both fighters
He didn't
sustaining
just
injuries,
fight, he
but
made
Rambo's
the
sheer
Predators afraid.
determination gave him
Every
the
time
edge.
one of their number
The commander
disappeared,
managed to
every
escape,
time an ambush
retreating
struck
into
them
the shadows with a
unexpectedly,
guttural
they
snarl.
began to question
But
their
Rambo
certainty.
had made his point,
And in that doubt,
even their
Rambo
best
saw
wasn't
an
enough
opening.
to take him down.
As the days passed,
the survivors
who had
rallied
watched the battle from a safe distance.
The initial fear was
erupted into
replaced by
cheers
hope.
as Rambo
Hope
returned,
that someone could
bloodied
fight
but
back,
unbowed.
that Earth's
The
tenacity
victory
was enough
wasn't
to
just
drive
his,
back the
it was
invaders.
theirs.
But
They
Rambo
saw
knew
in
that
him
this
the
was
proof
only
that
the
the
beginning.
Predators could be beaten,
The Predators would
that
not
humanity's
stop,
resilience
and the
could
Galactic
overcome
Empire
even
would
the
soon
Empire's
send
most fearsome
reinforcements.
creations.
There was no turning
But
back
Rambo
now.
knew the fight was
But
far
Rambo
from
didn't
over.
care.
The
He wasn't
Predators were
fighting for the
relentless,
world,
and the
he was
Empire
fighting
would
for
soon
the people
realize
who
that
still
Earth
believed
wasn't
in it.
just a nuisance,
And if that meant
it was
taking
a
on
threat.
an entire empire,
As he tended to his
one
wounds
kill
and
at a
prepared
time.
for the next
The
battle,
Empire's
he
invasion
couldn't
was
help
far
but
from
feel
over.
a grim sense of
But on Earth,
satisfaction.
one man
They
had just
wanted to
made them
fight.
realize that they
He
weren't
muttered
as
to himself,
invincible as
staring
they
into the firelight.
Now they've got one.
And with that, the hunt continued, the stakes higher than ever, the battlefield shifting toward a final, inevitable confrontation. The forest was no longer a refuge, it had become a war zone. Smoke curled from shattered treetops, and the earth bore scars from countless skirmishes. The Predators were relentless, deploying more forces with each passing day. But amidst the chaos, John Rambo pressed forward, his resolve unshaken. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for humanity's right to exist. Word had reached him of a command center hidden deep in the mountains, a fortress where the Predators controlled their forces and maintained communication with the Galactic Empire. If Rambo could infiltrate it and destroy their operations, he could cripple their assault on Earth. The mission was a suicide run by any measure, but Rambo had never cared about odds. The survivors watched in silence as he prepared to leave. Sarah stepped forward, her face etched with worry. "You don't have to do this alone," she said. Rambo shook his head, his gaze steady. "I do. You stay here, keep them safe. If I don't make it back, you finish the fight." Sarah hesitated, then nodded, her eyes glistening with unspoken gratitude. "You're more than just a fighter, you know. Your hope?" Rambo didn't respond. "You didn't have to." The journey to the command center was treacherous, the mountains rife with Predator patrols and automated defenses. Rambo relied on his instincts, his every move calculated. The higher he climbed, the colder the air grew, the world around him a stark reminder of how unforgiving his mission was. But he didn't falter. Each step brought him closer to the heart of the enemy. When he reached the outskirts of the command center, he paused to survey the terrain. The fortress was an imposing structure of black metal, bristling with turrets and energy barriers. Alien sentries patrolled its perimeter, their glowing eyes scanning for intruders. Rambo studied their patterns, noting every blind spot, every moment of vulnerability. He struck at night. The first sentry didn't even see him coming. A silent arrow to the throat ended its patrol, its body slumping into the shadows. Rambo moved swiftly, disabling turrets and evading motion sensors with practiced ease. He placed explosives along structural weak points, knowing he'd need a distraction when the time came to escape. Inside the fortress, the air was thick with the hum of alien machinery. The corridors were a labyrinth of glowing panels and alien script, but Rambo's instincts guided him. He located the central control room, where a massive holographic display mapped the Predator's operations across Earth. As he planted the final charge, the door behind him hissed open. The Predator commander loomed in the doorway, its black armor gleaming under the harsh light. It growled low, its voice a guttural challenge. This was no ambush, no carefully laid trap. It was a showdown. Rambo turned slowly, his machete in one hand, a makeshift grenade in the other. "I've been waiting for you," he said, his voice a growl that matched the Predator's. The fight that followed was a clash of titans. The commander was fast, its strikes powerful and precise, but Rambo was unyielding. He used everything at his disposal, environmental hazards, his own weapons, even the debris scattered across the room. The Predator's armor absorbed much of the damage, but Rambo's ferocity was unrelenting. The battle raged through the control room, sparks flying as alien technology shattered under their onslaught. Rambo took a brutal hit to the ribs but retaliated with a savage swing of his machete, striking a weak point in the commander's armor. The Predator roared in pain, its movements growing desperate. Finally, with a roar of effort, Rambo plunged his machete deep into the Predator's chest. The creature staggered, its glowing eyes dimming as it collapsed to the floor. Rambo stood over the fallen commander, his breathing ragged. He glanced at the countdown on his detonator. 2 minutes. Enough time to finish the job. He activated the explosives and began his escape, weaving through the corridors as alarms blared and the fortress shook. The surviving predators, realizing their doom, scattered in disarray. Rambo reached the exit just as the charges detonated, the explosion ripping through the mountain with a deafening roar. Outside, the survivors saw the fiery plume from miles away. Cheers erupted as they realized what it meant. The predator forces had been crippled. Humanity had a chance to fight back. Rambo returned to the survivors hours later, battered but alive. His presence ignited a wave of celebration, but he remained stoic, his gaze fixed on the horizon. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Sarah approached him, her smile tinged with relief. "You did it?" Rambo shook his head. "We did it. Now we make sure they never come back." As the survivors rallied, organizing their newfound strength into a coordinated resistance, Rambo watched quietly. He had started as one man against an empire, but now he had inspired an army. The Galactic Empire had underestimated Earth. They had seen only a primitive planet ripe for conquest. But now they knew the truth. Humanity wasn't just a species. It was a force, resilient, unyielding, and capable of turning even the deadliest predators into prey. And at the heart of it all stood John Rambo, a man who had reminded the galaxy that survival wasn't about technology or brute strength. It was about willpower. As the first rays of dawn broke over the forest, Rambo turned to Sarah and the others. "Get ready," he said, his voice steady. "They'll send more. And we'll be waiting." The fire in his eyes promised one thing: Earth would never kneel.